Welcome everybody. Today I want to be going over these COVID-19 face shields, how to print them, and what the best print settings are for these bad boys. So let's just hop right into the video. So here we are in Kira. We have the model loaded in. This is a special model that was created for my personal area, and it has some minor modifications, but it shouldn't be too different from the original Prusa. These holes here were just slightly moved around and the support is slightly different, but otherwise it is pretty much the exact same model. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to be optimizing speed and quality of these. For these masks, the biggest thing that you want are really easy prints. You want to be able to print as many of these as you can so that way they can get out to the front lines. So we're going to be messing around with settings that will allow us to have a faster print speed while still maintaining quality and durability. So one of the first things that you're going to want to change is your layer height. You're going to want to figure out your nozzle size on your printer because that will determine your layer height. My nozzle size on my printer is 0.4 millimeters, and with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle you are actually able to bring your printing up to 0.32 millimeters, and I like to bring my line width up to 0.5 millimeters just for a little extra size. So these settings will pretty much bring down your time in half, because if we have this at, let's say, your regular 0.2 millimeter print speed, we are looking at 10-hour print. That means you can only get about 4 a day if you're really trying that. But if we bring our layer height up to 0.32 millimeters, as you can see, we just brought it down to 6 hours and 30 minutes. I'm going to be showing you some of my other settings here that will also allow for the fastest print speed. So let's look at shell for a second. Now, we're not really too worried about high quality for these. We don't really care about if there's random little bumps and stuff in the filament. It doesn't have to be perfect, they just have to function. So we are going to want to have strength in these. So we're going to set our wall line count to 3. This will give us extra lines for parts around here that involve filament. Next is our top and bottom, and you can, if you don't see any of these settings, you can always go to the setting here around shell, click that, and you can access any of these settings that I have here, and you can just find them in the shell area. So I have 3 line counts and 2 top layers and 2 bottom layers. You can increase the amount of bottom layers and this will most certainly help, but I like to have it at 2. I find my filament works well with it. And my top layers I just keep at 2 as well because it doesn't have to look great. Next is infill. If you find that your filament is strong, you probably can get away with a smaller infill. I like to have it at 5% because it is very quick to print, but most people would probably print it at about 25. And if we do that, we can see how quickly the model prints. So now we were looking at extra 15 minutes. That's not too bad, but I don't really want to use as much filament since I only have a couple rolls, so I'm going to keep it to 5%. And I'm going to keep it on an infill pattern of grid. You can change this around, it's all down to what works best and what you like the most. Gyroid uses a little bit less filament and has changes around where it's actually printing, so it allows for some extra strength. Next is material, and I like to keep my temperature always around the same. I keep it at 205 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees. I'm printing PLA for this, so I usually keep it in that area. Also, you want to enable retraction. This is a good setting to have. Next is print speed. My printer can get away with about 90 millimeters a second with good filament, like high quality PLA, but I am using some fairly cheap filament that I get for free for making these masks, so I like to have it slightly slower. Next we have travel. Make sure you have Z-hop when retracted selected. If you don't see this, you can always hit the settings and find it. And Z-hop height, I just keep it at where it was. Always have print cooling enabled. Next is support. Support isn't super needed since the model already comes with support built in. If you find that your printer needs support, then definitely have it selected. Mine tends to print fairly easily, and there is some support already on the .stl file. Next is build plate adhesion. I definitely would not recommend Raft. This adds a lot of time and uses a lot of filament. I would probably either just do Brim or none at all. If you find that you have really good build plate adhesion, then I would just select nothing at all. But Brim allows just to make sure that your nozzle doesn't accidentally hit anything. And that's pretty much where we are. We are at 6 hours and 34 minutes for print time, which is pretty good for these 4 face shields. This means that you could probably do about 8 a day, which is extremely helpful. So now let's cut to the time lapse. So this is what we are looking at. As you can tell from the B-roll shots, on this left side you can actually notice that it doesn't look too bad. You can really see the layer lines in the lettering though. There's a little bit of some warping near the bottom of each of the masks, but overall it's not too bad. You can definitely see the layer lines, and there is a little bit of under extrusion and maybe a little bit of ghosting around these where the elastics go. Now as we continue around, then there's a lot of warping on this one edge here. Could have been from heat, it might have just been too far away from the print bed, something might have been too hot, but it seems to be doing that all the way down. And when we go on the inside, wow. There is a lot of stringing and just weird under extrusion and little tiny things that are just really not good quality. If you were to make something other than a shield and you were going to give it to someone, I would not do it. I think that this is probably from the filament, because I've never really had much stringing before, but it seems to be pretty bad. So there you have it. 3 printed face shields for healthcare workers in the COVID-19 pandemic, and these could be potentially used for future earth-shattering events. Make sure you don't sacrifice too much quality and durability for speed. However, it is really nice to get multiple of these stacks done a day so you can get as many as you can made. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning into Blarg, where Blarg stands for Blarg. Blarg, arg, g, g. See ya.